Plato is considered as one of the most important political philosophers who laid down the foundations of Western political traditions. Apart from Aristotle. Now, we are going to discuss who was Plato, what ideas he gave to us, and out of his many ideas, we are going to discuss his theory of justice. But before we do that, let's take some time to understand his context. As I said, he, along with his disciple Aristotle, has been credited for laying the foundation of Greek political theory, and on which the Western political tradition rests. Plato grew up in interesting times. He was born into an Athens in 427 BC, which had already been engaged in the 3-decade-long Peloponnesian War with Sparta for 3 years. Now, Athens was one of the strongest and one of the developed city-states of the Greek kingdom. However, the nature of Athenian democracy changed as the war went on. And we also need to remember that the golden age of Athenian democracy had already come to an end before the birth of Plato. The last years of the Peloponnesian War were the years of bitter party strife in Athens. There was a rivalry between democratic elements and oligarchic elements of political regimes. Eventually, Athens lost the war, and an oligarchic government of the 30 came to power, partly with the help of Spartan arms. Now, this government of the 30 was vicious to its democratic enemies, but it did not last long because democracy was quickly restored. But what happened during this restoration of democratic regime? The democratic rulers in 399 executed Plato's mentor Socrates, and the charge was impiety and corrupting the young. The regime alleged that Socrates was corrupting the young. Socrates, who was Plato's mentor, was executed by this democratic regime. All this chronology or political experience of the Athens of his youth and early manhood made Plato to feel unhealthy about the state of affairs or the contemporary political institutions. In his autobiographical 7th letter, as he mentioned that he was forced to the belief that the only hope of finding justice for society or for the individual lay in true philosophy, and that mankind will have no respite from trouble until either real philosophers gain political power or politicians become by some miracle true philosopher. Such was his feeling when Socrates was executed. When Now, after the death of Socrates, Plato traveled widely, and he made an unsuccessful attempt to convert a tyrant of Syracuse into a philosopher ruler, but he did not succeed in that. Later, eventually, he founded the academy in Athens in 386. This was the place where he spent his rest of his life teaching philosophy. Plato died in 347 BC. His writings are available to us in the form of dialogues, and one of the most important dialogue is the Republic. Besides the Republic, he wrote two other books on politics: The Statesman and The Laws. The Laws is often taken as an account of Plato's second best estate. It is said to be his account of the doctrine of mixed government, which was first in itself. By now we know that Plato was writing at a time when Athens was at the crossroads after defeating the Peloponnesian War. The factors or the causes, including the changing nature of Athenian democracy, execution of his mentor Socrates, and his failed attempt to transform a tyrant, led him to search for better ways of socio-political organization. And precisely because of these things, he visualized good life. And in fact, he was the first to formulate and define political ideas within a larger framework of a philosophical idea of good. What is good? And we know that the Republic begins with a discussion on the idea of good, leading to the conceptualization of justice. He explained the ways in which a perfect soul could be developed. For Plato, justice was the principle on which the state had to be founded, which will contribute towards making an excellent city. But before coming out with his own concept of justice, he examined contemporary views on justice and then elaborated the application of his concept of justice, its realization within an individual and the state. He defined justice in the individual analogously to justice in the state. In the Republic, he examined the origin of the states and cities and pointed out that they arose out of two regions. The first was mutual need, and the second, the differences in aptitudes of individuals. Mutual need led to reciprocal services, since the individual was not self-sufficient and depended on others for subsistence. Further, exchange of services necessitated division of labor, which in turn required functional specialization. And it was possible, according to him, because individuals differed in their nature and aptitude. Individuals will be trained to specialize and perform one particular task. Therefore, specialization was encouraged to bring about excellence and perfection. Plato tells us that it was not to assign any type of superiority to one particular section of society or one particular function. Rather, it was essentially to recognize the uniqueness in every individual. Acceptance and organization of diverse human aptitudes would result in social benefit, Plato tells us. And apart from social benefit, it will increase cooperation and will bring about harmony in society. So Plato is making two important points here. The first is that every individual is a functional unit, and each individual is assigned a particular task with clear-cut obligations and privileges. And these obligations are to be performed by each individual diligently and meticulously. It also underlined the fact that no one was born to render a specific function. Certain levels of training and skill was required. Since everybody would be involved in the performance of the socially required function, it would minimize the probability of free riding, and that is in fact a problem. Now, Plato wants to minimize this free rider's problem by assigning one particular task to each and every individual. Nobody will be free. Everybody will have to perform their own tasks. The second point he wants to highlight here is that society is visualized as a harmonized, orderly whole, where each individual will be recognized based on her talents and contributions. During Greek society, there were three main functions of society. What are these three functions? Ruling, defense, and production. And the function of production included all kinds of trades and crafts. Plato is explaining his arguments for differing individual capacities with the help of his theory of classes. And he assumes here three classes. These three classes and three souls idea he is taking from Pythagoras. He is pointing out that every human soul had three qualities: rational, spirit, and courage. And justice is the fourth virtue, which is architectonic in nature, and it balances and harmonizes the other three qualities. Plato is taking a psychological harmony here into consideration. The disharmony is to be harmonized. Now, in each soul, one of these three qualities would be predominant faculty. And the individual in whom rational faculty was predominant would be constituting the ruling class. And such a soul will be dominated by the virtue of wisdom. This soul will be loving learning. It would have the power to comprehend the idea of good. The souls in whom spirit was predominant quality. So the second class of soul, which will be dominated by the spirit. And these spirits or these souls will be constituting the auxiliaries or warrior class. What will be the virtue of such class? The virtue of such class of souls will be courage. They will be able to hold on to their convictions and beliefs in adverse times. So together, the rulers and the soldiers, these two will be constituting the guardian class. Plato is comparing here a spirited individual to a watchdog who is capable of performing acts of bravery, having public spirit while fighting strangers in defense of a city. Such kind of souls will be lover of honor and victory. They will be able to, or they will have the desire to sacrifice their material desires for the sake of common good. And this was a political virtue which was necessary for the survival of a community. Now there is a third class. The third, in the sense that the third category of souls. These souls are having the predominant faculty of appetite. These souls exhibit a fondness for material things. They were lovers of gain and money. These were the artisans and producing class. The quality of this class, or the quality of an appetitive soul, will be temperance. Though this is not exclusively found in this type of soul, but this will be predominantly found in this artisan or producing class. Now, using this Pythagorean analogy between a tuned string, a healthy body, and an alert mind, the Republican character, Socrates. Plato is using Socrates. We need to remember that Plato, in his Republic, is telling the story of justice and ideal state through his mentor Socrates, by assuming that character to be a wise person. Now he is giving us reasoning in the application of intelligence to activity of any kind. What is the underlying idea here? He is assuming that it is important to ensure the just right in order to achieve happiness. Now let's go further into what is justice in the individual and what is justice in the state. Now, justice in the individual means that every individual is assigned a particular place in society according to their natural aptitude and skills. It means departmental excellence. Justice is nothing but psychic harmony, which balances and orders the three elements in according to the dominant one. According to Plato, what is the key here to proper development in societal harmony? The key is restraint. You perform your one particular task, justice will be established in that particular soul. Now all the classes are performing their particular tasks. Justice is restored. Now who is able to differentiate that who can perform this particular task? The philosopher ruler. Plato is coming with another category. Who is the philosopher ruler? We will be taking it later, but this philosopher ruler, for now we can say that belongs to the category of soul which has got wisdom. So this is his idea of justice in individual. Now justice in the state means if all the three classes, the rulers, the warriors, and producers, perform their deliberative and governing, defending, and producing activity without disturbing the functions of others, then justice is established. So, in other words, justice means one class, one type of activity, one man, one type of work. He is drawing a parallel between the three social classes and the three elements of human soul. And he is saying that each soul has a corresponding social class. Every individual will be performing their own duty, and this is how just society is to be actualized. Now, we know that rulers and soldiers will be constituting the guardian class. What will be injustice? Injustice will be interfering in others' functions. So far we have understood who is Plato and what is his idea of justice in the state and in the individual, how he is telling us on the basis of Pythagorean idea of three classes and three types of souls. We will be taking up his ideas of education and other important ideas.